Right now, somewhere out there, a man with less talent, less discipline, and less potential than you is winning. Not because he's better, not because he earned it, but because he looks certain. He walks like every room belongs to him. He speaks like his words carry weight. He acts like he deserves everything he touches, and people believe him. Meanwhile, you hesitate. You overthink. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opening, the perfect feeling. And while you wait, someone else makes the move you were supposed to make. Someone else takes what could have been yours. This is the truth most people never face. Confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a weapon. And if you don't carry it, someone else will use it against you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Bold men rise even when they lack the skill. Hesitant men fall even when they're brilliant. Because the world doesn't reward talent. It rewards certainty. This video isn't about motivation, it's about control. It's the turning point where hesitation dies and presence is born. Because once you understand how confidence actually works, how rulers walk, speak, and exist, you'll never see yourself the same way again. You weren't born unsure. You weren't born apologetic. You weren't born hesitant. You were trained. Trained through repetition, through rewards, through rules. Trained to obey. Trained to wait for permission, trained to fit into the world instead of shaping it. And that training created a version of you that isn't a man at all. It's a servant who seeks approval, a servant who fears judgment, a servant who flinches at the possibility of being misunderstood. That hesitant voice in your head, the one that tells you to shrink, to explain yourself, to soften your words, that's not you. That's the inner servant, and until you kill him, you will never be free. Machiavelli didn't whisper. He didn't wait to be understood. He didn't ask for permission. He acted, and everyone else had to adjust. He didn't seek power. He seized it. Because he knew the most dangerous truth of all. Those who ask don't deserve. Those who take make the rules. Your transformation begins right here with inversion. You must reverse every instinct that weakness has conditioned into you. Every time you want to shrink, expand. Every time you want to explain, pause. Every time you want to apologize, stare. Dangerous confidence isn't born from feeling ready. It's born from doing what the inner servant would never dare. You walk faster. You stand taller. You take up space. You stop nodding in agreement just to seem polite. You speak like your words are decisions, not suggestions. Confidence isn't a mindset. It's an identity. And identities are forged through defiance. Not defiance against other people, defiance against the weaker version of yourself that still wants to serve. Your first rule is simple. If it makes you small, kill it. If a habit makes you hesitate, confront it. If a person drains your strength, distance them. If a thought makes you weak, deny it. If a part of you still wants to be liked, laugh at it. Because the world will always tell you to be kind, polite, and nice. But here's the Machiavellian truth. Nice men become tools. Nice men get used, discarded, replaced. Powerful men aren't nice. They are precise, measured, controlled, calculated. They understand that true strength comes from eliminating the part of themselves that begs to be accepted. You don't need permission. You don't need reassurance. You don't need validation. You need one thing, the willingness to become feared not by others, but by your former self. Because once you kill the servant, the ruler awakens. Powerful men don't announce themselves. They don't need to. Their presence shifts the atmosphere the moment they step into a room, not through words, but through silence, posture, and intention. A strong man enters a room and doesn't scan for approval. He doesn't look around hoping someone notices him. He doesn't rush to speak just to prove he belongs. He observes. He absorbs. He calculates. In the royal courts Machiavelli studied, the man who ruled the room was rarely the one who talked the most. Often, it was the figure in the corner, the one who barely spoke, because when he finally did, the entire court leaned in. Silence is a form of control. Talking too much is a form of insecurity. You think that being loud makes you dominant. It doesn't. It makes you predictable. The quiet man is the threat, because no one knows where he stands. No one knows what he's thinking. No one knows how far he's willing to go. When you walk into a room, your posture must speak before your mouth does. You move slowly, not because you're unsure, but because you're in no hurry. Predators don't rush. They wait. People rush when they feel beneath others. People hurry when they're seeking approval. People talk fast when they're afraid of judgment. But you are done living like that. When you speak, you don't speak to impress. You speak to decide. Your tone becomes final, not tentative. Your sentences become conclusions, not invitations. And when others speak, you let them go first. Why? Because the one who talks first usually reveals the most, what they need, what they fear, what they want. And once you understand what someone fears, you can control them effortlessly. This is what dangerous confidence actually looks like. You don't chase energy. You create gravity. You behave like someone who has already won. Not arrogantly, not loudly, but with a quiet certainty that others feel before they understand. If they respect you, good. If they doubt you, even better. Because a man who is indifferent to approval is a man who cannot be controlled. And if the room wasn't yours when you entered, by the time you leave, they'll remember it as if it always was. Words aren't just sounds. They aren't just communication. They are weapons, and most men swing them like dull blades. You can pick them out instantly. The rising tone at the end of every sentence, like they're unsure. The nervous laugh after every statement. The filler words. Maybe, I think. I'm not sure. The constant explaining. The apologizing for taking up space. That's not speaking, that's begging. And Machiavelli understood something most people still don't. Power is not in the content of your words. It's in the certainty behind them. When you speak like someone who cannot be denied, people don't analyze what you say. They surrender to the gravity of your conviction. Because people aren't logical. They're emotional. They don't follow truth. They follow certainty. If you sound sure, they assume you're right. If you sound unsure, they assume you're irrelevant. So what does a Machiavellian voice sound like? It's slow, calm, final, deliberate. A voice that doesn't open discussions, only closes them. A voice that speaks as if its words were already decided long before they were spoken. Even if you're in a room full of experts, if you speak like a decision, people will defer. They follow tone, not logic. They follow certainty, not credentials. The first rule of speaking with power is simple. Sound like the end, not the beginning. Most men talk too much because they're secretly afraid of silence. They fear the moment after they speak, because that's the moment where their words are tested. So they keep talking, filling the space, hoping no one notices their insecurity. But the more you say, the more cracks you reveal. Powerful men don't ramble. They don't explain. They don't soften their statements. They strike once with precision and let the silence do the rest. When you speak, remove the escape hatches. No, I'm just saying. No, I could be wrong. No, this might sound weird, but no, I don't know if that makes sense. Those are the phrases of someone looking for permission. Someone who wants to soften the blow so people don't judge them. Someone who fears disagreement. Burn them. Say what you mean and stop. Let the silence that follows intimidate them. Let them feel the weight of your conviction. Most people won't challenge you, not because you're right, but because confidence makes them doubt themselves. Understand this. Your tone is your real message. Your words are just the surface. Your calm, grounded, unwavering tone tells people exactly where you stand in the hierarchy. If you want to rise, you lower your pitch. You slow your tempo. You remove nervous energy from your voice. You sound like someone who has nothing to prove, like someone who already made up his mind and expects the world to catch up. You don't win conversations by being louder. You win by being certain, by speaking in a way that makes others feel your words aren't opinions, they're facts. This is how rulers speak. This is how generals speak. This is how men with silent influence walk through the world. And when someone challenges you, you don't argue, you don't defend, you don't explain. You simply say, "I disagree." Or even better, "That's incorrect." Then you move on. Because when you refuse to debate, you send a terrifying message. Your reality is not up for negotiation. That's how you dominate a room without ever raising your voice. Because confidence isn't volume, it's gravity. It's the invisible force that pulls attention toward you. The underlying assumption that when you speak, others should listen. That your words carry direction, finality, certainty. You're not trying to be right. You're speaking like someone who can't be wrong. You're not trying to be heard. You're speaking like someone who doesn't care if they agree, because they will eventually. That's real power. And from this moment on, that's how you will speak or you will stay silent. But confidence without control is nothing more than decoration. You can walk tall, speak well, and move like a man of authority. But if someone can still trigger you with a simple sentence, you are not powerful. You are exposed. This is where most men fall apart. They build the exterior presence, tone, posture, but their emotions are still owned by everyone around them. A whisper of disrespect, and they react. A small insult, and they spiral. A moment of silence, and they panic. A compliment, and they melt. This isn't power. This is emotional slavery. You aren't truly free until you master the invisible battlefield, the one inside your own mind. And that begins by rewiring your identity. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't fear enemies. He feared dependency. Because the moment people know how to move you emotionally, they own you. If someone can provoke you, they control you. If someone can flatter you, they manipulate you. If someone can ignore you and make you chase, they dominate you. This is the real war. Not physical, not verbal, psychological. You must become unreachable. Not emotionless, but unshakable. You feel everything, but you act on nothing unless it serves your long-term outcome. Someone insults you. You don't react. You extract information. What are they trying to gain? What insecurity are they hiding? What leverage are they testing? Someone praises you. You don't soften, you analyze. Why now? What do they want? What benefit are they hoping for? Someone ignores you. You don't panic, you become colder. Silence becomes your weapon, not your wound. This is psychological sovereignty. The point where no one can move you emotionally. Most men are so easily controlled, it's laughable. Tell them they're not good enough, they overcorrect. Compliment them, they cling. Pull away, they chase. This isn't decision-making. This is programming. And until you break the code, you will always be someone else's tool. We end this part with a shift. To become dangerous, you must kill the need to be understood. That need is the root virus of weakness. You don't exist to be understood. You exist to move the world strategically and silently. To become truly dangerous, to become someone who cannot be manipulated, predictable, or emotionally steered, you must kill the root of weakness, the need to be understood. That single desire, wanting people to get you, to approve of your intentions, to validate your choices, is the invisible chain around your neck. It's what makes you explain yourself. It's what makes you justify your moves. It's what makes you soften your tone, shrink your presence, or apologize for no reason. That need turns men into servants faster than fear ever could. Burn it. You don't exist to be understood. You exist to move strategically, quietly, deliberately. Understanding is optional. Control is everything. Kill the fear of rejection as well. Because the Machiavellian mind doesn't chase acceptance, it controls access. The goal is not to be invited in. The goal is to make people wonder what happens when they're no longer allowed near you. You are not seeking a place in someone else's world. You are building a world where others hope to be allowed. And finally, kill the habit of reacting emotionally. Emotions are real but irrelevant unless weaponized. You're angry. Let it become fuel for discipline. You're insulted? Let it become leverage. You're doubted? Let your silence become pressure today, and your results become humiliation tomorrow. Powerful men are not robotic, they are undeniable. They feel everything, but nothing controls them. Because once no one can move you emotionally, they can only watch you move and fear what you'll do next. Let others chase comfort and being understood. You chase clarity and control. The world doesn't respond to how you feel. It responds to what you project. Certainty, direction, gravity. And when your identity becomes unshakable, you become dangerous. Not because you're violent, not because you're loud, but because you're unreachable. And that's when the real tests begin. They will test you with silence. They will test you with disrespect. They will test you with praise. They will test you with confusion. They will test you with temptation. But nothing works. You stay the same cold, calm, calculated. And eventually, they stop trying. Because they realize something terrifying. You are the one person they cannot move. This is the final transformation beyond posture, beyond tone, beyond presence. This is identity. This is sovereignty. This is psychological independence. You are no longer shaped by others. You shape the room. You shape the rules. You shape the outcome. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to be accepted. You don't need permission to be exactly who you choose to be, because now you belong to no one, and that is what makes you untouchable. Rejection, something most men crumble under, becomes something else entirely when you understand it, Machiavellianly. To the weak, rejection feels like a wound. To the powerful, rejection is a signal, a message, a redirection. Rejection simply means one thing. Someone believed they could survive without you. That's not an insult. That's intel. Now you know where they stand. Now you know where you stand. And now you know exactly how to position yourself for the future. Step 1. Never appear affected. The second you show pain, they win. But it's not even about them. It's about your legend. A Machiavellian mind does not panic when a door closes. He simply makes the room colder. You weren't rejected. They were disqualified from accessing you. Rejection is only real when you acknowledge it. So don't. You don't react, you evolve. Step 2. Withdraw your presence like a weapon. What happens when something taken for granted disappears? Its value becomes painfully clear. That's exactly what you do. You vanish. No explanations. No emotional farewells. No dramatic exits. You disappear with precision, and while they feel the void, you build in silence. Machiavelli said a truth many never understand. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, but not for ones too severe. So, don't hurt them, don't react, don't fight. Simply make them irrelevant. Erase them from the frame of your life. Let your absence do the damage. Let your silence echo. Let your growth humiliate them without a word. Step 3. Reframe the narrative. Rejection only stings when it looks like you were chasing something. So rewrite the story not for them, but for yourself. You weren't rejected. You removed yourself. You observed their behavior, allowed them one opportunity, and they failed. They didn't reject you. They revealed themselves. They showed you their limits, their blindness, their lack of discernment. Now you vanish and upgrade. Step 4. Convert rejection into control. Rejection brings clarity. Most people walk through life confused, unsure of who respects them, who uses them, who fears them, who values them. Rejection cuts through the fog like a blade. It tells you who is blind to your value, who is beneath your future, who is not aligned with your rise. So refine your edge, sharpen your image, amplify your value until your name becomes a standard they can't reach anymore. The people who once ignored you will one day have to explain themselves when they mention you. And when they return, you won't need to reject them. They are already beneath the version of you that emerged without them. That's control, silent, permanent, elegant. Step 5. Weaponize your comeback. Revenge is emotional. Machiavellian power is strategic. You don't try to get back at anyone. You let time handle that. Time humiliates better than anger ever will. You reappear only when your presence creates discomfort, when your success is so obvious, so undeniable, so undeniably yours, that the person who once dismissed you can no longer look at you without feeling the sting of their ignorance. And when that moment comes, you say nothing. No sarcasm, no bitterness, no ego. You offer a single glance, or better, no glance at all, because now you're not seeking acceptance. You're setting the standard. This is the true nature of power. Rejection is not defeat. It is refinement. It exposes what needs to be cut, what needs to be cold, what needs to be left behind. Rejection is not a wall, it's a filter, a fire, a test. It reveals who is worthy of your future and who is unqualified to be part of it. So remember this, you weren't rejected. You were redirected toward a version of yourself that doesn't chase, doesn't flinch, and never asks twice. You build in silence. You rise in private, and you return as someone they can't reject even if they want to. Because now you move with a different identity. You killed self-doubt not with affirmations but with action. You didn't wait to feel ready. You moved, you spoke, you acted, and you learned the truth Machiavelli tried to teach. Power doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the bold. You took rejection and turned it into fuel. You removed your availability. You became scarce, strategic, silent. And they noticed. You stopped entering rooms hoping to be accepted. Now you own them through presence, posture, and precision. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak in a way that makes disagreement feel expensive. Above all, you rewired your identity. You became unpredictable, unshakable, untouchable. They cannot provoke you. They cannot tempt you. They cannot move you. Because you belong to no one now. And that is exactly why they will never forget you. This is what creates legends. Not noise, not validation, not popularity, but powerful silence, cold clarity, ruthless consistency. You won't need to announce your transformation. They will feel it in your walk, in your tone, in your absence. You've become the man people study quietly. The man who once chased, now being chased. The man who once asked, now deciding. You stop needing approval because you became the standard. There comes a point in every man's evolution where the world stops being something he reacts to and becomes something he shapes. A point where confidence isn't an act, or a technique, or a mindset, but a state of being. A gravitational field. You reach that point when your identity stops depending on outcomes, approval, or interpretation. When you no longer adjust yourself to fit into rooms, because the room adjusts itself the moment you enter. This level of confidence isn't loud. It isn't bragging. It isn't posted or announced. It's something others feel before they even understand why. And to reach that level, you must understand one thing. You are not here to fit in. You are here to bend the environment mentally, psychologically, and emotionally. Not by force, by presence. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that real influence comes from an identity that others cannot predict, cannot shake, and cannot break. And this begins with how you carry yourself. You don't rush, you don't fidget, you don't move with nervous energy. Every gesture is intentional. Every movement is efficient. Every expression is controlled. You don't perform for attention. You radiate an internal certainty that draws attention naturally. Powerful men don't compete for the spotlight. They become the spotlight. When you walk into a room, people feel something shift, even if they can't explain it. They adjust their tone. They measure their words. They become more careful, not because you said anything, but because your presence demands it. This is dominance without aggression, strength without noise, authority without force. To reach this level, you must master 3 internal disciplines: pace, presence, and precision. Pace determines how the world perceives your urgency. Weak men rush. Powerful men move with controlled tempo. Predators don't sprint unless they're striking. Presence determines how the world perceives your value. If you shrink, you signal submission. If you expand, you signal command. Precision determines how the world perceives your mind. Scattered men talk too much. Calculated men speak only when necessary. These 3 traits, pace, presence, precision, are the language of power. And when mastered, they allow you to shape the psychological landscape of every room you enter. But there's another layer far deeper, far more critical: the ability to choose silence over reaction. Most men reveal themselves too quickly. They show excitement too easily. They reveal fear too visibly. They expose insecurity too openly. They react emotionally before they think strategically. You must do the opposite. Your silence must be intentional. Your calm must be impenetrable. Your reactions must be invisible. When someone tests you, you don't show discomfort. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't rise to the bait. When someone seeks validation from you, you don't rush to reassure them. Your mind becomes a fortress, one that no one can enter without your permission. Most men live with open gates. Their emotions are public property. Their reactions are predictable. Their weaknesses are visible. But you close the gates. You guard your inner world. You control what others see. And that makes you dangerous. Because unpredictability is power. Once people realize they can't read you, they become careful around you. They speak differently. They act differently. They reveal more while you reveal less. And slowly, you gain the information advantage Machiavelli valued above all else. Power is never about being the loudest voice in the room. Power is about being the hardest man to influence. The less they can read you, the less they can predict you. The less they can predict you, the less they can control you. The less they can control you, the more they fear you. This is how empires are built, not externally, but internally. And this internal empire becomes unshakable when you eliminate one final weakness, the belief that you need to justify yourself. Weak men explain everything they do. They seek approval for their decisions. They want people to understand their intentions. Powerful men don't do that. They act, they move, they decide, and the world adjusts. If someone asks why you did something, you don't give a long explanation. You give a short answer or none at all. You don't owe anyone your reasoning. Your actions are your reasoning. You don't argue to protect your image. Your results protect it. You don't debate to prove a point. Your presence proves it. When you stop explaining yourself, you become untouchable. Why? Because people fear what they cannot decode. A man who needs to explain himself is a man who needs permission. A man who moves without explanation is a man who commands respect. This is the psychological shift that transforms you from someone who responds to the world into someone the world must respond to. And once you embrace this identity, everything in your environment changes. People stop challenging you casually. They stop speaking to you carelessly. They stop assuming you need their approval. They stop expecting emotional reactions from you. Because now you operate on a different frequency, one of cold clarity, measured intention, and silent certainty. And this creates a ripple effect. The people who once dismissed you start watching you differently. The people who once took you for granted start feeling your absence. The people who once triggered you now find themselves powerless. The people who once tried to dominate you can't even predict you anymore. This is what psychological sovereignty feels like. You don't chase control. You are control. You don't chase validation. You embody value. You don't chase influence. You generate influence. Everything you do, every move you make, carries a weight they can't ignore. You become the standard, the reference point, the force they adjust themselves around, not through manipulation, not through intimidation, but through unwavering identity. This is the moment your old life falls away, the insecure version of you, the approval-seeking version, the reactive version, the emotional version, the predictable version. He dies here. And the version that replaces him is someone people study quietly. The man who doesn't chase, doesn't flinch, doesn't need anything from anyone. The man who shapes the environment instead of being shaped by it. The man whose silence is louder than other men shouting. The man who moves with such precision and control that others feel his presence before he speaks and remember him long after he leaves. This isn't performance. This isn't a trick. This isn't a front. This is identity, reborn. And once you understand this level of power, once you embody it, once you live it, you can never return to who you were before. There comes a moment in a man's evolution where confidence stops being something he tries to project and becomes something he naturally radiates. A point where identity hardens, presence sharpens, and the world finally realizes you are no longer the person they once knew. This is the final stage of your transformation. Not improvement, not motivation, not confidence, but dominance. Because dominance isn't about overpowering others. It's about becoming the one force in the room that nobody can influence. You reach this level the moment you realize you no longer need approval, validation, reassurance, or interpretation. You don't wait to be understood. You don't wait to be chosen. You don't wait for permission to become who you decide to be. You stop shaping yourself to fit the world, and the world begins shaping itself around you. This is the transition from trying to be confident to becoming a man whose silence is more powerful than other men's arguments. And the reason people begin to react differently to you is simple. You are no longer playing the same psychological game they are. Let's break down what actually happens in this final evolution. 1. Your entire presence changes. You walk differently, deliberate, steady, never rushed. You speak differently, calm, complete, final. You look at people differently, with evaluation instead of need. And you enter rooms with a kind of stillness that forces people to adjust themselves. Not because you try to intimidate, not because you put on an act, but because your identity has shifted so deeply that the way you move has transformed naturally. People sense when a man no longer seeks approval. They sense when a man cannot be emotionally manipulated. They sense when a man stands on internal certainty rather than external validation. Your presence becomes gravitational, not loud, not aggressive, just undeniable. When you walk in, others instinctively measure themselves against you, and they don't even realize they're doing it. This is the type of confidence that can't be faked. It comes only from the work you've done inside your own mind. 2. Your value changes the air around you. Something interesting happens when you become self-contained. When you no longer need anything from people, they suddenly start giving you more. More attention, more curiosity, more respect, more effort, more caution. People treat scarcity with reverence, and when your attention becomes scarce, when your presence is no longer available to everyone, they begin treating it like something expensive. When the old you walked into a room, you walked in with hope. When the new you walks into a room, you walk in with certainty. Hope chases influence. Certainty creates influence. Others can feel this shift, and they naturally recalibrate themselves around you. They speak differently. They act more carefully. They hesitate before disagreeing. They pay closer attention to your tone, your face, your silence. This is power without force. Influence without effort. Dominance without domination. 3. You become impossible to predict. Weak men are predictable. They react to disrespect. They soften when praised. They panic when ignored. They expose weaknesses through emotions. But the final version of you no longer does any of that. You don't react to disrespect, you evaluate it. You don't melt under praise, you analyze it. You don't chase when ignored, you become colder. You don't answer emotional tests, you let others reveal themselves instead. When people cannot predict your reactions, they cannot control your direction. This unpredictability makes others cautious around you. It forces them to think twice before testing you. It causes them to measure themselves before they speak. It makes them reveal more than they intend while you reveal nothing at all. This is how the psychological hierarchy shifts. Not through dominance, but through unreadability. You become the man whose silence makes people overthink. The man whose presence makes people straighten up. The man whose reactions or lack of reactions make people question themselves. This is psychological sovereignty. 4. You no longer explain yourself. This is one of the clearest signs of your transformation. Weak men over-explain because they secretly want to be understood. They want others to approve of their reasons, their choices, their actions. But powerful men don't seek understanding. They execute decisions. They don't ask for permission. They don't justify their moves. They don't rationalize their motives. They take action, and the world adjusts. When someone asks a powerful man, "Why did you do that?" his answer is either brief or non-existent. Because he knows that the moment he begins explaining, he begins shrinking. When you stop explaining yourself, you send a silent but unmistakable message. My choices are not up for debate. People respect men who don't justify themselves. They fear men whose decisions stand alone. They follow men whose actions don't require explanation. This is the shift that separates you from everyone else. 5. People start feeling your absence more than your presence. One of the most striking effects of your transformation is what happens when you pull away. The old you begged for connection, attention, acknowledgement. The new you withdraws your presence without warning or emotion, and the silence you leave behind hits harder than your words ever could. People feel the shift. They notice the distance. They sense the loss, not because you were loud before, but because you had been accessible. When something rare disappears, its value multiplies. This is why your absence becomes a weapon. You don't punish people with anger. You punish them by removing yourself, not to hurt them, but to protect your standards. And those who once overlooked you, they suddenly remember every moment they took for granted. Silence becomes your sharpest tool. 6. Your growth becomes their consequence. You rise quietly. You improve privately. You build in the shadow, and then one day you emerge. Not with a loud announcement, not with a dramatic transformation montage, but simply as a man who is unmistakably above where he once was. The people who once doubted you now must face what you've become, not because you demand their recognition, but because your evolution makes their judgment look foolish. The best revenge has always been the same, a life that makes your past irrelevant. You don't need to confront anyone. You don't need to prove them wrong. Your success does that. Your posture does that. Your silence does that. Your presence does that. You become the man whose existence is the response. 7. You become a standard others must rise to. This is the final identity shift. You're no longer seeking a place in the world. You're creating the environment people must calibrate themselves to. You are no longer influenced. You are the influence. You no longer chase. You attract. You no longer react. You decide. You no longer need to be remembered. You become unforgettable by nature. This is what it means to be dangerously confident. Not reckless, not loud, not dramatic, but cold, controlled, deliberate, and unreachable. The man who walks into a room and others feel something shift. The man who doesn't compete because he has already chosen himself. The man who sets standards without saying a word. You end where all powerful men end, no longer needing anything from anyone. You belong to no one, and that is exactly why they will never forget you. This isn't self-help. It never was. This is psychological warfare, and now you are the weapon. In the end, your transformation won't be something you brag about. It will be something people feel the moment you enter the room. You've killed the old habits, silenced the inner servant, and built a presence that speaks louder than any explanation ever could. You no longer rush to be understood. You no longer bend to be accepted. You no longer react just because someone wants a reaction. Your silence carries authority. Your posture radiates certainty. Your decisions stand without apology. The people who once underestimated you will sense the shift long before they admit it. They'll talk softer, think harder, and approach you with a caution they never had before, because you no longer move like a man needing anything from them. This is the final stage of confidence. Quiet, controlled, untouchable. You don't follow the world anymore. You don't chase approval anymore. Now the world adjusts to you.